I woke up to a miracle today. Triggers stay as I find my way. No judgment to lead astray. In this peaceful state I'll stay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to A Course in Miracles in Practice.
Today we're tackling lesson 340, and the text, it just doesn't leave any wiggle room.
Not at all. I can be free of suffering today. I mean, that sounds immediately too good to be true to that part of us that believes pain is just mandatory.
The ego.
Yeah, the ego. And yet the lesson presents this as the only thing that is actually true about our identity.
And that's really the foundation of the practice, isn't it? Recognizing that the freedom we're looking for is never contingent on external circumstances changing.
It's entirely dependent on an internal shift.
It just completely challenges our whole premise for why we feel pain in the first place.
Before we really get into the depth of that choice, we do want to hear about your experiences with these concepts because they can be challenging. You can always email us at ACIM@theworldharmonyproject.org.
And you can find us on social media, too. Our handle on both TikTok and YouTube is @theworldharmonyproject. We love reading the comments and hearing about your specific applications. It really helps bring it to life.
So let's settle in now and really listen to the promise that's contained in Lesson 340.
Lesson 340. I can be free of suffering today.
Father, I thank you for today and for the freedom I'm certain it will bring. This day is holy, for today your Son will be redeemed. His suffering is done.
For he will hear your voice directing him to find Christ's vision through forgiveness and be free forever from all suffering. Thanks for today, my Father.
I was born into this world, but to achieve this day and what it holds in joy and freedom for your Holy Son and for the world he made, which is released along with him today.
Be glad today. Be glad. There's no room for anything but joy and thanks today. Our Father has redeemed his Son this day.
Not one of us but will be saved today. Not one who will remain in fear, and none the Father will not gather to himself, awake in heaven in the heart of love.
That line, his suffering is done. It just hits you.
It's the one line that feels so completely revolutionary, and yet it's also the easiest one to forget, I think.
Oh, absolutely. It's the promise we are constantly overriding with our own experience. We spend so much of our energy trying to solve suffering using the world's tools.
And those tools, by definition, can only see suffering as external. We, as students of the Course, we intellectually know the Course's definition of suffering, but our automatic response, that conditioned reflex, still follows the world's rules. The world convinces us that suffering is a direct result of conditions outside of us. It's a sudden dip in the stock market, a critical piece of technology failing.
A leaf blower at 6 in the morning.
Exactly. That's the deep programming we have to work on undoing. The world says the unexpected problem is the suffering.
100%. If your car breaks down, the car caused the stress. If your bank account is low, the finances caused the despair.
And what that does is it ties our internal state to external randomness.
I actually found myself right in the middle of this trap. I was house sitting for a friend, really lovely home. Everything was perfectly fine until, of course, the very last day. First, the main bathroom light failed.
Okay.
And then I hear this very strange, persistent sound of running water coming out of the laundry room.
Oh, no. So some kind of plumbing issue.
Yeah. And in that moment, the mind just starts spinning its narrative. The physical fact of a broken light and a leaky pipe is immediately translated into an attack against me.
Absolutely. The immediate conditioned response is anxiety. I'm sure you instantly started imagining your friend returning to find these 2 new problems that happened on your watch.
That's exactly it. And the substance of that anxiety is about the guilt and the responsibility I was projecting onto myself, even though these were, maintenance issues.
I can imagine you were probably convinced your suffering was a direct result of bad wiring and bad plumbing.
I was running that old familiar script that she would think I was irresponsible, or that I somehow broke her home, or that I was just generally incompetent.
And the world would totally agree with that interpretation. It would say, yes, unexpected home repairs while you're taking care of a friend's property, That's objectively stressful. That is the cause of your frustration.
It validates the whole package. The self-blame, the worry, all of it. But this is where we apply the core lesson.
Right. The core knowledge is that the suffering wasn't contained in the wiring or the pipes.
The suffering was the narrative.
The narrative. I'm a bad friend. Or that cynical one, this kind of thing always happens to me, I must be cursed.
She's going to be angry. She's going to be so disappointed.
The lesson says, I can be free of suffering today.
Which means free of the internal self-condemnation, the anxiety, even if the external inconvenience remains completely unresolved for a little while.
The physical fact and the emotional response,
Yeah.
they can be separated.
We confuse inconvenience with suffering all the time. If a pipe leaks, that is an inconvenience. There's water on the floor. It's a physical fact that needs a practical action.
Right, you call a plumber.
Suffering is the story we attach to it. I'm being punished, or the universe is against me.
And the lesson promises freedom from that self-manufactured story.
It doesn't promise us a magical pass on practical life or, the physics of aging infrastructure. The freedom is internal and it's immediate.
And the lesson specifically mentions hearing your voice directing him to find Christ's vision. And we have to clarify what Christ's vision is in this context.
Yeah, because it certainly does not mean that the moment you forgive the situation, the pipes magically fix themselves. Christ's vision in the Course is the ability to look upon the world without the ego's interpretation of guilt and attack. Christ's vision sees the pipe as just a neutral object and recognizes that the suffering is a projection from your mind, not an attack on it. That shift is the atonement in action. Atonement, as the Course defines it, is just the realization that the separation from God never happened. Therefore, guilt is impossible.
When you see the pipes or the dark room without that layer of guilt, you're seeing them through Christ's vision.
The guilt is the suffering. The vision undoes the guilt. It reframes the entire nature of causality. The external event is not causing the suffering. The ego's interpretation, which insists on making every event personal evidence of my failure, that is the cause.
The ego sees these events as evidence that the world is dangerous and that we're vulnerable and separate.
The Holy Spirit just sees a request for love. It sees an opportunity for forgiveness, no matter what physical form the event takes.
Our suffering exists in that moment of confusion when we choose to listen to the ego's story.
If I'm suffering, I am arguing with the peace that is already mine.
In that argument, that choice to believe in guilt is what Lesson 340 says we can abandon today. The freedom is not the absence of the dark bathroom. The freedom is the absence of the belief that the dark bathroom defines your worth or your capacity for peace.
So as we move into the next layer of this, we really have to deal with the part of us that resists freedom. It sounds illogical.
It's the most challenging concept to accept, I think, because it requires such radical honesty. Why would we cling to pain?
Identifying as a victim serves a very specific purpose for the ego. We get this small, insidious hit of righteousness.
The ego needs that payoff, that feeling that I'm the victim of bad luck or I'm the target of some random persecution.
Suffering validates the separation. It proves to the ego that the world is chaotic, that fairness doesn't exist, and most importantly, that I'm right to feel this way.
It maintains my specialness.
The specialness of victimhood, yeah. And freedom requires us to be willing to give up that pleasure of feeling persecuted or unlucky.
And that subtle pleasure, it can even manifest when we're trying to be spiritual. We often confuse suffering with caring.
In the house-sitting story, I felt that if I wasn't suffering, then I wasn't being responsible.
You believed the anxiety proved you cared about your friend and her property.
Exactly. If I had instantly found peace, the ego would have just accused me. You're being cavalier, you're detached and unloving because you're not taking this catastrophe seriously. The ego makes peace feel irresponsible. It can even make it feel heartless.
We're so conditioned to believe that emotional turmoil equals depth or commitment or love. The Course asks us to reverse that completely. Peace is the only meaningful sign of commitment to truth, not to the ego's drama.
And that leads directly to the second layer of suffering we so often apply to ourselves, which is the secondary judgment. We feel the initial anxiety about the pipes or maybe about a failure at work, and then we immediately judge ourselves for failing to be spiritual enough.
Oh, that's incredibly corrosive. I'm a course student. I shouldn't be nervous about this performance review, or I should have mastered this by now, so now I'm a failure at my job and at my spiritual practice.
That secondary judgment is the glue. It cements the initial suffering in place by turning it into evidence of our own inadequacy. We're not just suffering from the event anymore, we're suffering from our judgment of our suffering.
So the lesson demands that we look at that initial anxiety or frustration and simply state the truth. This isn't who I am. This isn't the reality of my being.
We have to recognize that the anxiety is just a thought form. It's an interpretation that is fundamentally not part of God's creation.
Okay, but I want to push back on the difficulty here because the lesson is so absolute. If someone is dealing with a genuinely long-term painful issue, say a chronic illness or maybe a prolonged period of unemployment, how do they apply "be glad today"? There is no room for anything but joy and thanks today without it sounding like spiritual bypassing or just plain denial.
That is a crucial question because we have to avoid simple denial. The answer, again, lies in separating the physical fact from the interpretation. The physical fact of pain or the lack of a job is an inconvenience, sometimes a profound, relentless inconvenience. But the suffering is the story we attach to it. This illness proves I am permanently broken, or this unemployment means I am a societal burden and will never recover.
The suffering is the self-condemnation. It's the despair, the future projection of permanent failure.
When the lesson says, "be glad today," it's commanding us to stop adding that overlay of guilt. It's asking us to accept the physical reality, I have discomfort, I don't have a job, without using those facts as evidence against our inherent holiness.
We stop using the situation to prove our separation is real.
That's where the freedom is found, even if the discomfort remains for a time. And this brings us to that profound line that reframes our entire history. I was born into this world, but to achieve this day.
That statement repurposes our whole existence.
It completely dismantles the ego's life plan. The ego's plan is always about achieving some future outcome, stability, success, comfort, that will eventually justify us.
So the purpose isn't to be a perfect house sitter or a flawless professional or someone who never has physical challenges. The purpose is singular.
It's to use the external event, be it a leaky pipe, a difficult diagnosis, or social dread, to practice forgiveness and achieve immediate freedom.
The true achievement is the internal shift. It's the instant choice to align with God's will for me, which is happiness, rather than aligning with the ego's interpretation, which is suffering.
And that is why the lesson is so absolute. Once we recognize that the entire purpose of being here is to accept the atonement for ourselves, then any moment we choose not to suffer becomes the fulfillment of our entire life's mission. We achieve this day when we decide to experience peace instead of pain.
One of the ego's most effective defense mechanisms against this kind of freedom is postponement. If the suffering can be gone today, that means no waiting period, no necessary penance, no future mastery required. The lesson mentions finding Christ's vision through forgiveness. We absolutely have to forgive ourselves for feeling that initial surge of anxiety. That secondary judgment is so powerful.
If we can just look at the anxiety and realize, I am not this fear, this is merely a thought I'm allowing to pass through, we cut the ego off from its fuel source. We stop fighting the anxiety and just recognize it as something that isn't true.
When we're struggling with that, the ego is so inventive. It supplies all this evidence for why we should remain anxious. It insists the worry is protective, or it's a necessary warning system.
The ego tries to convince us that peace is dangerous. If you're peaceful about your finances, you won't hustle hard enough. If you're peaceful about the social event, you won't prepare adequately.
But the Holy Spirit's corrective voice is always practical. It's not reckless.
And that's the connection to the practical guidance. The text says we will hear your voice directing him. If I am following my own panicked, negative script, I'm too busy shouting about how things should be going. I'm drowning out the helpful direction. We have to consciously decide that internal peace is a better option than the drama of being a victim of circumstances.
We're trusting the truth of our identity over the evidence of our senses. We're trusting that God's will for us is continuous happiness, as it says in the Course, and that any deviation from that feeling is simply an internal error we can correct today.
The freedom is instant because the correction is conceptual, it's not conditional.
So let's delve into the metaphysical implications of this freedom, which is, I think, often the most challenging concept for people to grasp: the shared nature of release. The text says, "The world he made, which is released along with him today."
The mind is collective. We are all one sonship.
Our internal state is never truly private. So when I choose to suffer, I'm actually reinforcing the universal belief in scarcity and attack and guilt.
We are reinforcing the universal idea that attack is real, which contributes to the collective illusion of suffering. This makes the practice profoundly communal. Your choice for peace is not just self-help, it's literally an act of saving the world.
I think the biggest struggle is accepting that peace is instantaneous. It's not a gradual emotional process. It is a decision about what to believe, not a feeling you have to manufacture.
It is the acceptance of the atonement. The atonement is instant because it states that the separation, which is the root cause of all suffering, never happened. If it never happened, there is nothing to undo, only something to accept.
The choice for freedom is the choice to accept the atonement, and that choice is always immediate. So for everyone listening, we invite you to look at your day ahead and apply this concept decisively. Identify the specific items on your to-do list that already carry a charge of dread or a sense of inevitability about future suffering.
And apply the lesson to that item. Say it out loud. I can be free of suffering regarding this difficult conversation. I can be free of suffering regarding this feeling of being behind schedule.
And crucially, watch how your mind tries to argue against peace.
Catch that specific thought, that justification for retaining misery. That is your choice point. You can keep the situation, the deadline, the difficult call, and maintain the peace at the same time.
You do not have to change the external circumstance to clear your internal mind.
A powerful truth to carry forward into the rest of this day and every day after.
Thank you for joining us in this exploration.
We hope you find that freedom today in the small inconveniences and the big moments of perceived difficulty.
I